What's up guys, Alex Isidro here, back with another video, and today we're going to be ranking the difficulty of the mechanical engineering classes that I took in college. And the first thing I want to mention is that if you are not familiar with my story, I went to a community college for the first 2 years of my engineering journey, and then I transferred to a 4-year university, which was Virginia Tech. So the first thing that we're seeing here is we have the general engineering core classes that I took in my first 2 years. I'm not taking into account all the electives and all that stuff when it comes to general like history and communication and all this stuff. I'm not taking that into account. We're only focusing on core computer science. Wow. Engineering classes. So the ranking that we're going to have here is going to be fairly simple. It's going to be easy, red, and then medium is going to be yellow, and then hard, it's going to be obviously red. So that's the ranking that I'm going to be using, and we're going to get started here with general chemistry. General chemistry, I want to say it's a medium difficulty class. It's very tedious, but if you put in the work and you pay attention, it's a medium difficulty class. The classes that I took when it comes to, or the subjects that we went over, especially when you're only dealing with the first level chemistry, is really not that bad. It just requires you to really focus, and it's a lot of work, just like any other science class. So medium difficulty, I want to say it's not too crazy. The second engineering class that I took in my first 2 years, this was the first intro to engineering, which was just going over ethics and principles. This was really a very easy class. It's a walk in the park, really not that crazy. It was just all about the general engineering concepts, the profession, the ethics, safety, and yeah, that's pretty much mainly it. And now we're actually going to be getting into the meat of the engineering curriculum when it comes to general high-level classes for engineering. And this is the first one that I took, which was statics. Statics can be a very difficult class, and I'm along with deformable bodies, which it deals a lot with stress, a lot of physics, and also dynamics. Perhaps out of these three, dynamics was the hardest one for me specifically, but keep in mind, the one thing that I want to stress in this video, guys, is that if you are someone that enjoys what you're learning, if you are interested in what you're learning, you're not really going to mind paying attention, and you're not really going to mind spending the time learning and submersing yourself and doing the homework for all these classes, because you are generally interested in how things work. You're going to want to dig a little deeper. Now, if you hate every single class, every single homework, and now you can't really pay attention, then watch the video where I personally switched my major from computer science to mechanical engineering. Watch that video and you're gonna know exactly what I mean, because that's a sign. That's a sign. If you hate every single class, every subject that you go over, then be careful with that. Okay, so with that being said, the next thing I want to mention here is engineering economy. Engineering economy, I want to say that it was a medium difficulty. For me, at least, I think it was a little difficult when it comes to using, there was a bunch of formulas that I really wasn't used to using at that point. It really wasn't that much math. It wasn't super easy. It wasn't a walk in the park for sure. But yeah, so if you ever taken engineering economics, let me know in the comments below and what you think about that class. Now, linear algebra. Linear algebra can be a hard class. And one of the themes that you are going to realize is that, or as I go through the rest of the video, is that the professor is going to make a huge difference on how difficult a class can be. It can be the make or break or whether or not you understand certain concepts. But if your professor sucks, let's put it bluntly, if your professor sucks, then you're just going to have to work with your teammates. You're going to have to work with your study buddies, with your TAs, tutors. Use your resources. Do not let the outcome of the class depend on the professor. You have to start putting in the work. The other one, a couple of other classes, of course, calculus. Here we get into more math. Calculus 1 was difficult for me. It was one of those classes. When I was taking calculus 1, I was learning English. I didn't even know what a slope was. And not only that, of course, it was the first time I started dealing with curves and started dealing with derivatives and limits. And so calculus 1, yes, difficult. Now, the other calculus classes really weren't that difficult. And I think that once you get used to all the lessons and concepts from calculus 1, then you can apply the same philosophy, the same level of hard work and ethic to the rest of the math classes and all the other difficult classes that you're going to be dealing with. And so I think that calculus 2, which was a multivariable, that's when you start dealing with integrals. It was it was medium difficulty, along with also calculus 3. Now, vector geometry, to be completely honest with you, I do not remember that class at all. So I'm gonna write here, actually, don't remember. So if you're someone that is taking or took vector geometry, let me know in the comments below what the class was like for you. And then we have the 2 last classes that for my first 2 years, general engineering classes, foundations of physics. I want to say that they're both hard classes, but here's the thing. I really enjoyed working on these classes, but it was a lot of work. And let's face it, physics can be very, very difficult. Now, guys, the point of this video is not to scare you. It's not to tell you, hey, look at all these hard classes, because I know that you're paying attention right now to all the red and you're thinking, wow, red is bad. No, when I mean hard, I mean that there is a lot of work and focus involved in it. You have to be really good with the time management. You have to be really good with turning in the homework and studying for the test. And hey, it's engineering. It's not going to be an easy degree. So prepare for that. So the next thing that we're going to be mentioning here, one class that I was actually forgetting was computer science. I took computer science 101, and that actually was a class where I learned Java. And if you've been following the channel for a little while, you know that I hate programming, and I hated programming back then, so it was a very difficult class for me. Now, programming is difficult, period. There's a special breed of engineers and computer scientists that just really enjoy programming. And if that's you, then you're gonna think that programming was really, really easy. But I'm trying to be non-biased here, but so generally speaking, programming can be difficult. Okay, so now we go on to the last couple of years of my engineering journey. This is when we're going to start shifting from general classes to more mechanical engineering related. And the first one, this is going to be the first semester in the spring 2010. And the first one was an electrical engineering class, applied electrical theory. This is a hard class, period. Electrical engineering is difficult. A lot of hard work, a lot of volume of work as well. There is a lab involved. So if you ever take this class, and we haven't taken it yet, make sure that you take advantage of the homework and all the labs, because that's really going to help you understand the concepts better and with your grade as well. The next one was a freshman class, actually, that I had to take when I was a junior at Virginia Tech. And that was exploration engineering design. This one was a medium class. When you start dealing with design and engineering and design classes, they're very tedious because there's a lot of instructions that you need to follow. The grades that you have are very, very team-based, and you have to know how to deal with your teammates. You have to know how to deal with difficult personalities, with people that don't do their work, people that don't follow instructions. So there's a lot of communication that needs to happen there. So pay attention to that. And let's see, differential equations was another, this one was a medium difficulty as well. And if you remember a little while ago, I mentioned that when it comes to calculus and math, once you get a grasp of how math really works and the patterns that you have to identify and the formulas that you need to remember, then everything just follows the same pattern and the same philosophy of hard work, the same level of detail, volume, and all this stuff. So intro to differential equations was medium difficulty. So the next class that we have here, this is the first mechanical engineering class that I took, and I was very, very excited when I first signed up for this class up until I took it, because it actually was a medium difficulty, I want to say. This was medium difficulty. This one goes over the high level concepts of thermodynamics, fluid mechanics, and heat transfer. Nothing too crazy, nothing too deep. I think it was only a 2-credit class, but it was it was difficult enough that I think I ended up getting a B- on this one. Now, this is, I'm not even going to think about this one. Material science was a difficult class for me. A lot of chemistry and a lot of visualization. It was just very foreign to me. I really wasn't that interested in what I was learning with material science. I knew it was important, but I really didn't enjoy it. I wasn't into it. I wasn't understanding. And yeah, not a fan for sure, material science. So it was a hard class. I think I passed with a C-, like barely. And then the next class that I have here is statistics for engineering applications. And that one was actually a medium difficulty. It wasn't easy. It wasn't hard. It was okay. You have to pay attention still. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to know what you're doing. And the professor, he was pretty cool. He was pretty engaging. And so it wasn't too crazy. It was medium difficulty, but I know that statistics can be, could be difficult. Okay. So this brings us to the summer of 2010, Wow, it's a long time ago. And this is when I took system dynamics in an attempt to increase my GPA, because as you could see because you can see the pattern from the first semester, it was a rough one. I think after this first semester, my GPA was a 2.7, and I was trying to increase my GPA. And here with system dynamics, I want to say that it was a medium difficulty class. And with this one, the pain was over only in 8 weeks. Done during the summer. Just got it over with. The class here was small because it was a summer, and so it was really easy to ask questions, and the professor didn't really mind taking his time, and so it was definitely a medium difficulty class. It wasn't too crazy. If you think otherwise, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. And then this brings us to the last 3 semesters, or maybe the last couple of semesters at Virginia Tech. And this is when I took the second semester of mechanical or of an electrical engineering class, which was industrial electronics. That one was a hard class as well. I just didn't like electrical engineering, and it was really difficult for me to grasp those concepts. At that time, amazingly enough, after I graduated and I started working with electrical engineers, and it really wasn't so bad. But I think that once you're studying the hardcore concepts, the nitty-gritty of everything that happens in a circuit and digital stuff, it can be hectic. It can be a hard time. Okay, thermodynamics was hard. It's a hard class. Fluid mechanics was medium difficulty, and the main difference between these 2 classes, I want to say, was the professor. Again. And thermodynamics, the concepts themselves are pretty simple when it comes to, well, if we just talk about the first law, I know that all the charts can be very rough. So that's what makes it difficult. It's very tedious, and you have to know exactly what you're looking for in all the tables. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Never ever be afraid to ask questions, especially when you're in college, because that's what you're supposed to be learning. Supposed to be asking questions. So do not be afraid to ask questions. Even if you think that you're slowing down the class, just ask your questions and you're going to be much better off. And if you think that you really don't want to slow down the class, then just go to the professor's office hours. Just go ask questions there. A couple of days ago, Gerardo asked me a question, saying that he didn't want to annoy the professor or interrupt the class. If you really don't want to do that, just go to the office hours, and if the professor is really unresponsive, or the professor just overall just sucks, that's just part of the engineering curriculum. The professors also add another level of difficulty, and you just have to learn how to start dealing and overcoming those obstacles. So use your resources. Again, contact TAs, tutors, work with your teammates, and you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Okay, so now we go into mechanical design. Mechanical design was actually a pretty difficult class. And this is why. Mechanical design, the first time I took it, this semester I actually had to drop it. I got a W. But the second time I took it, the concepts that I was learning then were actually much easier to grasp, and I was that much better at them. So if you ever fail a class, or if you ever don't do too hot and you have to drop it, the second time you take a class, because you already know what to expect, then you are going to be much more efficient and much better at learning the concepts, especially even if you have a better professor, which was actually my my case. Okay, so we keep going down here the last couple of semesters, and the next one here is going to be heat and mass transfer. That one was a medium difficulty class. A lot of analysis, a lot of geometry on this class. So if you're good on geometry, I want to say that it may be a little easier for you. Dynamic system vibrations, that one was a hard class. There's a lot of math, and the professor wasn't too great explaining the concept. A lot of the times the professor would just send a TA. But yeah, so the vibrations, that was a hard class. For me, this was an elective because I could have taken controls, or I could have taken vibrations. I took controls. I had to drop it because it was just way too hard for me. I did not think in those terms. And so vibration was still difficult, but I still managed to do well in that class. So here we go over a couple of, this is more like a senior class. It's a 4,000 level class, mechanical engineering lab. This one was writing focused, and I want to say that this was a medium difficulty. And this is why. The whole concept of the class was just mainly running an experiment and then writing a report about it. What happened, your summary, the main takeaways, your recommendations. Very, very identical to what happens in industry at the end of the day. But if you are first being introduced to writing technical reports, then this can be a little difficult for you. But if you enjoy writing, then it might be a little easier for you. Now, if you hate writing, then it's going to be a challenge, so prepare. And then here is an undergraduate research class that I took. This is an elective class, and I want to say that this was actually pretty easy. It was just a matter of going to meet up with a couple of grad students. Now, this may be a little different for you depending on what kind of research you're doing, what kind of team you have. So a lot of different factors here, but it was an elective for undergraduate research. If you want to know how undergraduate research can help you gain professional experience, go watch this video that I'm going to be linking in the description here after you watch this one, of course. Okay, so here we go with the last couple of semesters in my mechanical engineering journey. We go with fall 2011. Okay, so engines, this is an elective that I took because I wanted to get into the automotive / aerospace industry. I wanted to go to either field upon graduation. Nothing actually ended up working out. I ended up in the naval industry, which I actually ended up enjoying. But this class, the engines and powertrains, it was actually pretty easy. It was very engaging, and there was a lab involved with it, and we were taking apart engines and transmissions, and I actually really did enjoy learning a lot about internal combustion engines, gas engines, diesel engines, and of course also transmissions of vehicles. So really cool class. I really enjoyed it, so therefore it was easy for me. Now the other thing is engineering design and economics. This is a class that I was supposed to take as a sophomore, and I had to take it as a senior. So this one was actually medium difficulty. It wasn't really that hard. It was just very tedious and a lot of teamwork. Now here's the thing. There's two things that I want to mention here when it comes to this class. So number one, I want to mention that I was already a senior, keep in mind. Now, when you're a senior and you are dealing with sophomores, the level of responsibility and the outlook and perspective for the classes that you're taking is going to be different. Sophomores tend to take engineering at school not as seriously as when you're a senior. And so me being a senior and being an old fart in the class, dealing with a lot of sophomores wouldn't take the job seriously. They wouldn't take the work seriously. And so I actually had to end up picking up the slack. So that's going to be something that you may have to deal with when you're in engineering school, dealing with other teammates that are not doing their work. Now, here's the other thing. This is a class that I had to take as a senior, and this is a sophomore level class. So this goes to keeping track of your engineering journey and your engineering curriculum to make sure that you take the classes you're supposed to take when you're supposed to take them. The advisors at universities are going to tell you, they're going to hopefully do their best to keep you on track, but it's your job and it's your responsibility to make sure that you actually are taking the classes that you need to take in order to graduate on time. That way you don't end up taking too many classes at the end of your engineering journey, and who knows, perhaps even delaying your graduation date just because you missed one class that you had to take when you were a freshman. So always keep that in mind. Okay, so enough of that. The next class that I have here is this one, Mechanical Engineering Lab. So this is a continuation of Mechanical Engineering 4005, and this is just the same process, but it was more presentation focused. So it's the same process. You run your experiment. Not only do you write a report now, but now you actually have to go out and present in front of 300 students. So that was nerve-wracking in the beginning. Now I wouldn't mind it, but in the beginning, when you start getting exposed to those uncomfortable situations, it can be hard. So especially if you don't like to talk in public, very useful skill to have, but it's not too easy to develop. So if the earlier you can develop it, the better it's going to be for you. So by the way, if you are a freshman or sophomore that, hey, you are watching this video, then make sure that you get comfortable with speaking in public, because it's a very useful skill, not only that you need later on in college, but also that is definitely going to set you apart once you join the industry. Okay, the next thing that I want to mention here is this is my first semester of my engineering design capstone project, and this one was a medium difficulty. Now, the way it worked in very simple terms very quickly is that we had a large capstone design team, and the team was actually divided into little subgroups. And my part of the work that I had to do was I was in charge of capturing all the logistics and getting all the equipment for the data instrumentation, the data acquisition system, the strain gauges, all the wiring. So I was in charge of that with my teammate, with our little subgroup. So we actually enjoyed doing that, and it was a lot of hands-on work, a lot of computer analysis. So that was really cool. So that's why it was medium difficulty. Now, if I would have been the one of the group doing final element analysis, which is something that I generally don't like doing, then perhaps I would have hated my guts during that last year, and I wouldn't have done too hot. But because I enjoyed what I was doing, then it wasn't too hot. I mean, it wasn't too bad. So medium difficulty there. And then this is another senior class for mechanical engineers. And this is when you start dealing with CAD, fluid thermal systems. You start simulating and designing AC systems, air conditioning systems, and heat exchangers. You start playing with the software and see how parameters change the design, how to make the design more efficient. And so I want to say that this class was actually also medium difficulty. Okay, so here, this brings us to my last semester in mechanical engineering. And this one actually brings us to an aerospace elective that I took. And that one was actually medium difficulty. It wasn't a walk in the park, but it also wasn't too hard. It was all right. The next one that we have here, Industrial Systems Engineering class. This is another class that I was supposed to take as a freshman, and I ended up taking it actually as a sophomore, and then I ended up taking it as a senior because I just didn't have it in my curriculum. So pay attention to the classes that you take to make sure you graduate on time. So this was actually pretty easy. This one was actually very hands-on. I enjoyed the concepts, welding, drilling, machining. So that was actually a very, very hands-on class. I really enjoyed it. Okay, so this brings us to the last 3 classes of a mechanical engineering journey. And I'm going to tell you straight up, the second semester of my senior design project was pretty easy. It wasn't too bad, honestly, because I already explained what I was doing. So my camera just overheated, but let's go over the last 2 classes that I took in my mechanical engineering journey. And I want to say that sustainable energy solutions was medium. We learned a lot about hydropower, wind power, nuclear power. It wasn't too difficult, but it also wasn't a walk in the park. So medium difficulty. And the last class that I took was vehicle dynamics. And actually that one was also a medium difficulty because we started learning a lot about cars and transmissions and how tires are designed, how suspensions are designed, suspension systems in cars. And so a lot of really, really cool stuff. So what does this tell you? What does this say here when you look at the curriculum of my curriculum as a mechanical engineer and you see a lot of red, you see a lot of medium, keep in mind that just because I classify something as a difficult class, it doesn't mean that it's not overcomable. It doesn't mean that you cannot overcome a difficult class. You just have to work through it. You just have to put in the work, just have to focus, be really good with time management. And I've shared plenty of videos here on the channel where I tell you how you can overcome difficult classes. So I'm not making this list to scare you, but so that you know what to expect going forward in your engineering journey. So make sure that you like this video. If you find it helpful, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want to know more about my transcripts and my grades on what I got on all of these classes, make sure that you go watch this video right here, and I'll see you on the other side.